Today, I am bringing you a wide receiver that you should be avoiding in the first round of your redraft and or underdog leagues. Comment down below. Let me know which wide receiver you think I'm talking about today. And as always, go to flockfantasy.com/land. The best way to support what Zach and I are doing here. You get 30% off at sign up. You get our articles, our rankings, our bonus content, and so much more. So much more, not only from Zach and I, but all the other content creators on there. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land. The best way to support what Zach and I are doing here. And one last thing, go to underdog.com. Use our promo code LAND, LAND, and they will match your deposit all the way up to $100. Meaning if you deposit $20, they're going to put $20 in your account, meaning you'll have $40 to play for, or in total, which is awesome. Once again, use our code LAND, LAND, and go check that out. The wide receiver that you should be avoiding in your underdogs or redraft leagues. He is currently wide receiver 9 on underdog. He is my wide receiver 13 in my rankings, and that is Davante Adams. Look, as much as I love Davante Adams and the history of success with him and Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr this past year, he is now with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think that is a big question mark, especially with all the rumors and conversations and articles that are coming out about Jimmy G. There's conversations that he may not even be on this team at the start of the season, and if there's those two scenarios do happen where he's on this team and starting week 1 or not on this team, or and Brian Hoyer is the starter, let's have the conversation, right? So obviously the worst case scenario, Brian Hoyer is the starter of this team. I'm assuming they're going to bring in somebody else. Who's that going to be? I'm not sure. But with Jimmy G, if he is the starter week 1, I'm still want to avoid Davante Adams here, and especially how high he's going at wide receiver 9. It's probably the lowest we've probably seen him in a while. I would say in his whole career, obviously with Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, wide receiver 9 seems, in my opinion, high once again. So let me give you a quick history. Obviously, since 2017, he has finished as a literally top 3 wide receiver since 2017 to 2022. Finished wide receiver 3, 12, 3, 1, 2. In 2021 and wide receiver 3 this past year. He had over 180 targets, over 1,500 yards this past year with Derek Carr, 14 touchdowns, which he was first amongst wide receivers in the touchdown category, which was incredible. And there was question marks when he came into 2022 if Derek Carr was going to be this guy that can really, keep him up to where he has been as the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, or the wide receiver 1. And he did show that. And a lot of the reasons why that was because of the deep passes. Now, when you think about Jimmy G, you're not thinking about those deep passes of 20 plus yards. You're thinking of the short, quick slants, the screen plays, he's a game manager. He's not someone that's going to be taking risks down the field. And if he does, he's usually really bad. I mean, it's kind of true. So what's really interesting when I went to go do my research about this take and why I'm going to be avoiding Davante Adams or why he fell down my rankings, it was because of the attempts for 20 yards or more. And when you look at Derek Carr versus Jimmy G, obviously I'm just doing this past year, is a massive, massive difference. So Derek Carr this past year, attempts over 20 yards or more, 71 attempts in the air that he threw the ball. That was 4th most amongst quarterbacks in 2022. Now, Jimmy G obviously got injured in 2022, so I bought 2022 and 2021 stats. Jimmy G, 28 attempts versus Derek Carr's 71. That was 31st amongst quarterbacks, 2nd last. But in 2021, where he played essentially the full season, Jimmy G, 29 attempts, 29th amongst quarterbacks, and that was 3rd last. Look, that didn't really improve. He threw one more attempt for over 20 yards or more. And in that year, let me remind you, Deebo Samuel was a top 3 wide receiver finish in 2021. He finished as a wide receiver 3. But let me remind you, that year, Deebo Samuel, that's where he was doing all his stuff on the ground. He rushed nearly for almost 400 yards on the ground, 59 attempts. He had more touchdowns rushing than receiving in 2021. So in reality, if you take those rushing attempts away, Deebo Samuel would have finished as the wide receiver 13 that year, which is, I think, kind of makes sense why Davante Adams is my wide receiver 13 this year. Look, I am not saying that Jimmy G can't continue to maintain Davante Adams as a fantasy relevant wide receiver. I'm just not sure if that's going to be a top 5, top 8. I would even question a top 10 finish coming into 2023. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And Davante Adams, when you really break down Davante Adams, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, even with the targets, when you think of the targets that they got down the field, it's still not the best. I mean, 2021, you can probably see the graphic on your screen. Davante Adams was second amongst wide receivers with 38 targets versus Brandon Ayuk with 33rd with 18 targets, and Deebo Samuel's 101st in targets with only 6 deep targets or over 20 plus yards or more. I think that is a significant difference. And when you really break down Davante Adams, where his workload comes from in the air, and that comes from those deep passes, those 20 plus yards, 39% of his yardage in 2022, which was over 1,500 yards, came from those deep passes. He was first in touchdowns in 20 plus yards or more, second in targets in 20 plus yards or more. Davante Adams gets his work through the air 20 plus yards or more, whether that was with Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers. And I think Jimmy G, who does struggle with the ball going down the field, I think could hinder Davante Adams right now. So in your underdog drafts, obviously it can go in either way, but in the wide receiver room, it's normally just, once again, in any specific order, but it's usually Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson. And then people start to question, okay, Davante Adams right here as my wide receiver 9 is Davante Adams. For me, I'd rather take a Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'd rather take a Jalen Waddle. I'd rather take a Saquon Barkley, a Jonathan Taylor, a Chris Olave, a Devonta Smith. I think in an underdog draft, you can even question a Mark Andrews. Look, there's so many other people I would rather take over Davante Adams right now. And that sounds crazy. So right now, I think he feels for me as a late second round pick from maybe the 210 onwards. That may be a little bit late for you guys. That may be a bit too crazy. But if I can get the value for Davante Adams in the late second, I'm willing to take that chance. But at the late first to the early second, I'm willing to punt Davante Adams and go for another wide receiver, which I feel a little bit more comfortable with, like once again, Jalen Waddle with the Tua, Amon-Ra with the Golf, Devonta Smith with a Jalen Hurts, Chris Olave with the Derek Carr, who is a new quarterback, a Saquon Barkley, a Jonathan Taylor, so many more other options you can truly go there. Look, I love Davante Adams. I think he could potentially finish as a top 15 wide receiver, in my opinion, but I think we're going to see a massive regression from Davante Adams this year. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. It's always a good conversation to have. And comment down below and let's have a good conversation. You can agree or disagree. As always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.